Hi, and welcome to SDI Coffee Break. And if you've seen some of these before, hopefully you have. They're designed as informal chats, all things service management, service desk, IT support, all that wonderful stuff. And a chance for our community to grab a coffee, to relax, to listen and hopefully learn. And hopefully listen to some interesting stuff as well at the same time. Today we're joined by our good old friend, less of the old actually, no, a good friend.
No, you're right first time.
Yeah, our good friend Pat Bolger. As many people will know, Pat is chief evangelist at Hornbill. Pat's been with Hornbill since 1988, helping to shape the business there, the strategy and the service management products that they have. And many listeners would have seen Pat on stage at conferences and events internationally all over the globe, talking about the industry and best practice, IT service management, all that stuff over the last, how many years, Pat? How many years? Since 98, yeah?
Yeah, probably since then, yeah.
And hello, it's good to see you again. We not too long ago did some of these, so it's great to see you again, Pat. How are things going?
Yeah, pretty busy. Really busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We might come on to some of that now. And the reason we're doing this is because Hornbill is bringing out a new publication. It's, I think you're terming it to be a new industry keynote publication, which is cool. And it's entitled The Path Out of COVID-19, Creating the Digital Blueprint for Service Transformation. And I think I've read it. It's very, very interesting. Some really good stuff. Publication covers 5 key stages, sort of journey mapped, I think it's fair to say, Pat, from COVID-19 happening, when it happened, right the way through to realigning and the digital workspace. So what we're going to do over the next sort of 5 or 6 videos, depending on how we go, I'll talk about some of that, talk about the key stages, Pat, and hopefully explore some of that and some stuff beyond that too. So it really should be quite an interesting vlog series there, which is great. Now, initially, Pat, the publication discusses the impact on businesses and the need to rethink, the business models, operations, the customer experience or the customer relationship, and the employee engagement experience as well. So, I think my first question is, Pat, why have Hornbill focus on this topic right now? Why have you done that right now?
I think what we've seen over the last few years is a relatively pedestrian pace of change within organizations, just sticking with the old ways and kind of the old tools and complex technical things that IT people love configuring and stuff like that. And also the tendency for everything to work within a silo. And we've been talking about it for years. Everyone's been talking about collaboration, how important that is, but few are actually doing it. And most of them don't even know where to start. So when I say collaboration, we're not talking about Zoom. You and I are having that discussion through Zoom now, but it's no more than kind of a virtual meeting room. Yeah. And that's not collaborating. Collaborating is a different animal entirely.
Yeah, and we will come on to that because I know you're very passionate about that. Certainly in the last series of videos we did as well, very passionate. So we'll come on to that because there is a specific point on collaboration as well. Now the publication also talks about demand. And demand in the fact that if post COVID-19 or in the new world, because I don't think it's going to sort of vanish, but it questions if demand will exist. And in all types of industries, you mentioned aviation, tourism, leisure, automotive, retail, if the demand will exist as we start the path out of COVID-19. So what do you think about that? When you talk about customer confidence, and it affects us because we support that indirectly, obviously, right? How long do you think it'll take before customer confidence to be restored? And this is maybe before any kind of vaccine or anything, right? So all this stuff that you've got in here, how's that sort of contextualized against what you think is going to happen from a demand perspective as the journey starts out of COVID-19?
Well, I think it depends on the industry. I mean, you mentioned a few of them, high street retail, aviation, a few of those. Basically, they rely on face-to-face interaction. And that's a tricky one right now. And it's fine. I mean, so long as, we're now on this kind of government relaxing lockdowns and people getting some semblance of normality. But there is no question that I think we will be, the World Health Organization is saying it. It's not a question of whether it will happen. It's just a question of when. So it will largely be determined by how effectively these lockdown measures last and how well we control that or not number. And other industries, I think, this has been a massive boom for them. Things like on online retail, for example's sake, logistics, other industries like that, and actually our own service management profession. One of the things that this keynote paper actually highlighted was demand for kind of the next generation of service management is going through the roof, and that's something we've certainly experienced.
Really interesting. Again, we'll touch on some of that, I think, as we go through this as well. Really interesting stuff, actually. A few more things, maybe, just to cover off in this one, as a preamble into the rest of them, I think. You talk about hyper transformation. Now, I think the word hyper has been used an awful lot recently. I think it's used a few times. What does that mean? What is sort of the era of hyper transformation, Pat?
Well, basically, we're now in a situation where businesses are going to go back to work, and we will have, no question, we'll have less people to actually manage the work. We will be struggling to get the resources that we had before. So I think this hyper transformation thing, if you look at the kind of impact on just the UK, I mean, it was announced this morning that a drop of 19.1% up to May in GDP. That's going to have transformative impacts on businesses. And what I'm talking about in terms of hyper transformation is the need to actually do things with a lot less waste than we currently have. This kind of idea of siloed working, disjointed processes, different departments working in different ways, that's all waste. It's all a huge amount of waste. And that is going to have to be addressed. And I think you're going to have CEOs working with COOs, CFOs, and CIOs to try and redefine what the business strategy will look like for all of those, the business model, the customer engagement, employee engagement, all of those other components. So out of that is going to drop out new business models, new engagement models, new IT strategies, and part and parcel of that is going to have to be a need for efficiency right across the board. Things like self-sufficiency. So IT people, running projects for 9 months to get a tool set up and playing with it and customizing it, and then not being able to upgrade it and having 6-week projects just to fix the latest bugs and get a few new features. That's not going to work in the new world. It's just not going to cut it.
It's interesting. It's almost sort of hyper transformation. It's almost hyper reinvention. It's almost hyper reinvention. You're almost rewriting the rule book. Now, I think that's quite exciting, and I'm sure some organisations will think it's less than exciting, right? But I think that innovation, it potentially gives us a completely different platform. We've talked about the fourth industrial revolution forever. This thing could actually give us the platform to build the fourth industrial revolution, not just talk about it, or certainly from a speed perspective to get there quicker. Yeah. Maybe the last question in this session, Pat. I'm interested about, you talk about the uncomfortable truth in this, right? About post-COVID-19, that there's no return to normal. And that is quite stark. It's quite a stark thing to say, and I'm sure people are still thinking about, I've seen on TV, I've seen business owners talk as if it's still the norm. It's still pre-COVID, which is really interesting, really interesting. So not even thought about the differences they need to make. What have you found? What has Hornbill found through this period? And I'm maybe talking about demand for services, demand for information, demand for your brains, right? What have you found over this period?
It was quite interesting because when lockdown kind of first got announced, we thought, well, what's the impact going to be on us? We didn't know. And we had a nice little graph in that keynote because one of the things we do is we manage, we collect market intent data across 25 different technology sectors in real time. And that kind of tells us largely what the market is doing. So we kind of track the search terms that the market are actually using. And what we saw is, as the lockdowns first kind of came in, there's just basically people were searching for remote working, collaboration, IT transformation, those type of things. Then suddenly, all that market intent data just took a nosedive. Absolutely looked as if the market had collapsed. Wow. And we thought, wow, is our market in turmoil? But after we got into April, you start to see the rise of IT transformation, of self-service. And then we had another slight dip, I think, just as people were getting stuff together and trying to define their kind of digitization plans as they come out of this. Now we're seeing a huge increase in IT automation, enterprise service management, change management, self-service again is coming back in. So I think now there is no way that this or any market can actually manage without critical support systems to be able to manage the number, the volume, what should we say, and the complexity of the requests that are coming. So demand in our market space, I think, is higher than ever. And actually McKinsey in their kind of expert resources on coronaviruses, they highlight actually those two things, service management tools and automation tools, as being absolutely essential to get that critical path out of COVID.
Wow.
So one of the things that we anticipated this kind of this demand dropping, and what we thought was, well, we're going to have projects cancelled, and we did have some postponed, but no projects were cancelled. Wow. And actually, most of our customers increased their subscriptions. Of course, they can decrease them, and that may be coming. But you know, the need for these type of tools, the need for us to do everything quickly and faster than we ever did before, is going to return. And one of the things the paper actually highlights is that other teams are going to need those capabilities as well. So not just IT. And what we have been terribly, terribly bad at is fixing our own house and letting everything, all our colleagues who are struggling with exactly the same issues that we have resolved years and years ago, and we're not helping them. So that's the whole question of IT value. If you're going to prove it, there's where your value is.
Yeah, that's really cool, and I love all that. To be honest, I think certainly, you know, I'm a firm believer in what we're going to explore as we go on to the next sentence. Yeah. I think it's fair to say. So we're gonna end that one there. We're gonna end that video there. Pat, thank you for taking the time to have that discussion. Thank you for our listeners for listening, and please join us on the next one, where we'll be looking at the first stage of the recovery, and the journey out of COVID-19. Thanks for joining us. Thank you.